the P. Diddy's arrest was last night.
Yeah.
His charging documents were unsealed right before we went on air, and they include trafficking, transporting to engage in prostitution, racketeering, conspiracy. His attorney says he will not plead guilty to all of them.
Stevie J should be charged. Mary J. Blige should also be charged. Jennifer Lopez should definitely be charged. Jay-Z should be charged. Khaled should be charged. Rick Ross should be charged. Usher should be charged and tried with him off of Justin Bieber alone.
This is someone who destroyed my life.
Diddy's in jail, and now the finger-pointing has begun. In a twist no one saw coming, Diddy seems to think Jay-Z is the mastermind behind his arrest. Crazy, right? Jay, who used to be tight with Diddy back in the day, has been eerily silent ever since these allegations started making waves. So now everyone's asking, was Jay just playing it safe? Or could he really be why Diddy's behind bars?
Well, Sean Combs, also known as Diddy, behind bars right now at the Metropolitan Detention Center. And new today, he is under suicide watch. So the place where he's locked up is getting a lot of attention, as you can imagine. The MDC is the only federal jail in New York City.
It's known for violence, poor conditions, and a string of celebrity detainees. And Diddy's attorneys want him out. Yasmin Vesuvian has more.
From his $48 million Miami mansion to hell on earth where chaos reigns. Just some of the words used to describe the Metropolitan Detention Center where Sean Diddy Combs is now being held without bail after pleading not guilty to trafficking and racketeering charges.
Combs abused, threatened, and coerced victims to fulfill his desires, protect his reputation, and conceal his conduct.
He is not the first high-profile inmate to pass through these walls. Ghislaine Maxwell, R. Kelly, Pharma Bro, Martin Shkreli, and crypto fraudster Sam Bankman-Fried, all as they waited for their federal criminal trials, called this jail home. But the conditions of the prison are far from homey, notoriously described as, quote, dreadful, as one judge put it. Some on the bench have even moved away from sending nonviolent defendants there. In April, a group of detainees that prosecutors said were MS-13 gang members in court documents stabbed an inmate 44 times in an attack caught on camera. 2 shivs were recovered from the attack. You see them here. The victim survived. And in the last 3 years alone, 4 inmates have died by suicide. And violence is not the only issue. Accusations of medical neglect, staffing shortages, smuggling of drugs, some allegedly facilitated by employees. At least 6 staff members charged with crimes in the last 5 years, according to the AP. Some accused of accepting bribes and providing contraband.
I've had clients describe MDC as hell, as the worst conditions they've been in.
Lance A. Clark is a federal defense attorney who's been there many times.
Now, if the government is going to mandate that they are responsible for your well-being, they have to ensure the safety of your well-being.
Occupy the streets until they get heat.
In the winter of 2019, protests over a power outage left inmates without light or heat for a week in the cold.
I understand how cold it must be in those cells, and not to have any electricity, any lights, and to not be able to communicate with your family is just inhumane.
The prison has about 1,200 detainees and is the only federal prison in the nation's largest city. The DOJ shut down New York City's other federal jail, the Metropolitan Correctional Center, back in 2021, 2 years after Jeffrey Epstein died by suicide there. A Bureau of Prisons spokesman telling NBC News they, quote, take seriously addressing the staffing and other challenges at MDC Brooklyn, adding the director appointed an urgent action team and they've increased staffing.
MDC has historically had tremendous problems, and the problems aren't resolved.
Combs' lawyers originally hoping he could await trial under house arrest at his mansion, now arguing for him to be moved to a prison in New Jersey in the lead up to this trial, citing the prison's poor conditions, violence, and deaths. On Wednesday, his lawyer said he was being held in a special housing unit with an extra level of security.
Just in, a second judge has denied bail to Sean Diddy Combs.
So the judge cited the possibility that Combs could tamper with witnesses as he faces trafficking and racketeering charges. Here's ABC's Jacqueline Lee.
Hip-hop star Sean Diddy Combs is back in a Manhattan federal courthouse today, fighting to be released on bail. His attorney writing in a letter to the court Wednesday that Combs is eminently trustworthy and should be released on a $50 million bond. The rapper offering to secure the bond with his $48 million Miami home, and the bond would be co-signed with his mother, sister, 3 adult sons, and mothers of his 2 daughters. Combs was arrested Monday, and sources tell ABC News he has not been incarcerated with the general prison population. A judge denied him bail Tuesday after expressing concern that Diddy's alleged crimes occurred behind closed doors, with law enforcement unable to monitor his behavior.
Someone's presumed innocent, so you're presumed that you get bail. Not in this kind of crime. In this kind of crime, bail is not presumed. Furthermore, you've got the problem that he's accused of intimidating witnesses, of trying to interfere with the investigation. None of that helps him in his argument that he should get bail.
Combs pleaded not guilty to charges of racketeering and trafficking. A 14-page indictment alleges Combs manipulated women to participate in highly orchestrated performances of activity with male prostitutes called freak-offs. Prosecutors allege he subjected young women to violence, use of firearms, threats, coercion, and verbal, emotional, physical, and sexual abuse.
Between at least 2008 and the present, Combs abused, threatened, and coerced victims to fulfill his desires, protect his reputation, and conceal his conduct.
Combs' attorney telling CNN those so-called freak-offs were consensual.
It was adults and consensual, and everybody who was there wanted to be there.
Diddy's attorney is saying to the court that Combs has never evaded or run from a challenge and will not start now. If Diddy is convicted of his alleged crimes, he faces decades in prison.
Here's where it gets even more interesting. While Diddy's convinced Jay-Z had something to do with it, the reality is that the feds had more than enough evidence to lock him up without any external help. And with Diddy in a cell, more people are coming forward, ready to spill even more shocking details.
All right, we're getting into the debrief and the very latest on Sean Diddy Combs' arrest on trafficking crimes. TMZ is reporting that at least 2 new people plan to cooperate with the feds, and they're willing to testify in front of the grand jury.
All right, join us now with the details. Charles Latabodier, TMZ executive producer. Charles, thanks so much for being here with us. Obviously, it's been a very busy week in this case. What's the latest with the investigation?
Yes, Steve and Bianca, as U.S. Attorney Damian Williams promised earlier this week, he said this is an ongoing investigation and that they will be speaking to more people. We found out that these 2 individuals, and we have actually spoken to one of them. They are both workers, currently. One of them says that they had an interaction with Diddy in 2014. And they are willing to tell the feds what they know about that interaction. And another one said that they are willing, and not only willing, but have been subpoenaed to go before the grand jury. So the second person could end up going before the grand jury. At this stage, they are just going to be interviewed by prosecutors. Clearly, they're trying to figure out what these other witnesses know and how they can help them convict Diddy, and that's the name of the game at this point for the feds.
Yeah.
The question is if there is going to be a jury, because yesterday you reported that a former warden had a warning for Diddy that he should watch his back in prison.
Yeah, look, this is, he's going to be in this at Brooklyn, MDC Brooklyn. Who knows? It could be up to a year before this trial begins. And obviously, they're going to be, his attorneys have said that they're going to try to get him moved to a different facility. But for now, he's in there. And what we've been told by a former warden is he's a target. That's the fact of the matter. And that's why they have him in a solitary part of the jail, because they don't, he becomes a target because it's like what we've been told, it's like a badge of honor that if you were able to inflict some violence on Diddy, that gets you score points with the other inmates. So that's a situation that obviously the jail officials do not want to happen. So they're going out of the way to make sure that doesn't happen. He is in a really, can you imagine like the lap of luxury that Diddy's been used to for decades now, and then just like that, he is now in this jail, and unless they can get him bail at some point, he's going to be behind bars for
for sure.
a long time.
You know, just briefly, what's going on behind the scenes in Hollywood? All these people who partied with him, who might be on these hidden tapes. What level of panic are you hearing from all these people we know who associated with him over the years?
I will tell you, Steve, we are not hearing any panic because no one, and this has been true since the raids, really, nobody who we know, people who we know Diddy. We've seen them at his parties, and I'm not talking about the freak-offs. I mean, we haven't seen any of that video, though. Remember, the feds say they do have video that they seized during the raids from those freak-offs, so they know who the celebrities are, if there are any involved in the freak-offs. But we've seen plenty of video over the years of Diddy's very public parties, and all of those people, you know, they're not saying anything. They haven't for months. And yes, to your point, there certainly got to be people who are nervous about getting a call from the U.S. Attorney's Office, whether it be to come in as a witness, whether it be just to be interviewed to find out what they know, or go before the grand jury, which is something nobody wants to do. They want to be away from this case as much as possible.
I feel like we're certainly just scratching the surface on this case. Let's talk about something else happening right now. You're reporting today that Lady Gaga's dad just endorsed Trump, calling him pure and a patriot. Was this surprising to you as you guys were talking about this today?
It was definitely surprising. Joe Germanata, or as we've been calling him here in the office, Daddy Gaga, went on Fox and Friends this morning and very full-throatedly endorsed former President Trump and spoke about why he is endorsing him. He acknowledged that, in his word, the word he used was, he acknowledged that Trump is abrasive, but he just prefers his policies. He said, I'm not voting for a person, I'm voting for the policy. And he felt like New York has gone downhill while Joe Biden was in the White House, and he thinks that Trump should be back there. You can tell he is not comfortable with some of the things that Trump says or does, but it's about policy for him. It was weird because we all know that Lady Gaga is very liberal, and while she has not endorsed Kamala Harris yet, she did full-heartedly endorse Joe Biden, and we're expecting at some point she will do that for Harrison Waltz.
Yeah, as of right now, I think all she's done is like the post from Taylor Swift or whatever.
The family dinners are going to get interesting with them.
Exactly.
Imagine Thanksgiving after the election.
It's an American story at this point, that's for sure. That's right, you know?
That's the truth.
All right, very well, Charles. We appreciate all the info. Thanks so much.
One of the key people speaking up is a rapper who went to jail back in '99 for that infamous shooting incident with J-Lo.
This is someone who destroyed my life.
Former rapper Moses Shine Barrow is speaking out in the wake of Sean Diddy Combs' arrest and federal indictment. Once Diddy's bad boy protege, Moses served nearly a decade in prison for a 1999 nightclub shooting in New York, where 3 people were injured. Diddy attended a party at the club with his then-girlfriend Jennifer Lopez and had also been arrested and accused of being involved in the shooting. However, during his trial, he said he fired the gun in self-defense and was acquitted of all charges. J-Lo was also arrested at the scene and was held for about 14 hours but was released without being charged. Moses, who is now the leader of the opposition in the Belize House of Representatives, claims he took the fall for Diddy and is now reflecting on his incarceration, calling Diddy someone who, quote, destroyed my life. In a press conference, the politician details their past relationship.
When I was a 18-year-old kid, just wanting to do nothing other than make my mother proud and make Belize proud and do what all of us want to do, be recognized for our talent and take over the world. I was defending him, and he turned around and called witnesses to testify against me, and he contributed. He pretty much sent me to prison. So that is the context by which you must always describe that relationship. Yes, I forgave. Let us not lose sight of what the cold hard facts are. This was not someone who I vacationed with and who he and I enjoyed this great intimate relationship of brotherhood. This is someone who destroyed my life.
Moses, however, admits that in recent years he only reunited with the bad boy mogul for investment purposes.
And for the better interest of Belize, because he was in a position at that time to give scholarships and to maybe invest, I would not deny attempting to bring the investment to Belize and to bring the contributions to education to Belize, but don't distort it as if, you know, he and I were bombali. This is someone that destroyed my life.
E! News has reached out to Diddy's lawyer for comment about Shine's accusations, but hasn't heard back. The former rapper's comments come after Diddy was arrested on charges of racketeering, conspiracy, trafficking, and transportation to engage in prostitution. Diddy has pleaded not guilty to all the charges, with a judge denying bail ahead of his trial.
Well, Sean Combs still behind bars as we speak after a judge denied his request for bail a second time. And the place where he's locked up now getting a lot of attention. The Metropolitan Detention Center, the only federal jail in New York City, is known for violence, poor conditions, and a string of celebrity detainees. And Diddy's attorneys want him out. NBC News' Yasmin Youssein has more.
From his $48 million Miami mansion to hell on earth where chaos reigns. Just some of the words used to describe the Metropolitan Detention Center where Sean Diddy Combs is now being held without bail after pleading not guilty to trafficking and racketeering charges.
Combs abused, threatened, and coerced victims to fulfill his desires, protect his reputation, and conceal his conduct.
He is not the first high-profile inmate to pass through these walls. Ghislaine Maxwell, R. Kelly, Pharma Bro, Martin Shkreli, and crypto fraudster Sam Bankman-Fried, all as they waited for their federal criminal trials, called this jail home. But the conditions of the prison are far from homey, notoriously described as, quote, dreadful, as one judge put it. Some on the bench have even moved away from sending nonviolent defendants there. In April, a group of detainees that prosecutors said were MS-13 gang members in court documents stabbed an inmate 44 times in an attack caught on camera. 2 shivs were recovered from the attack. You see them here. The victim survived. And in the last 3 years alone, 4 inmates have died by suicide. And violence is not the only issue. Accusations of medical neglect, staffing shortages, smuggling of drugs, some allegedly facilitated by employees. At least 6 staff members charged with crimes in the last 5 years, according to the AP. Some accused of accepting bribes and providing contraband.
I've had clients describe NBC as hell, as the worst conditions they've been in.
Lance A. Clark is a federal defense attorney who's been there many times.
Now, if the government is going to mandate that they are responsible for your well-being, they have to ensure the safety of your well-being.
Occupy the streets until they get heat.
In the winter of 2019, protests over a power outage left inmates without light or heat for a week in the cold.
I understand how cold it must be in those cells, and not to have any electricity, any lights, and to not be able to communicate with your family is just inhumane.
The prison has about 1,200 detainees and is the only federal prison in the nation's largest city. The DOJ shut down New York City's other federal jail, the Metropolitan Correctional Center, back in 2021, 2 years after Jeffrey Epstein died by suicide there. A Bureau of Prisons spokesman telling NBC News they, quote, take seriously addressing the staffing and other challenges at MDC Brooklyn, adding the director appointed an urgent action team and they've increased staffing.
MDC has historically had tremendous problems, and the problems aren't resolved.
Combs' lawyers originally hoping he could await trial under house arrest at his mansion, now arguing for him to be moved to a prison in New Jersey in the lead up to this trial, citing the prison's poor conditions, violence, and deaths. On Wednesday, his lawyer said he was being held in a special housing unit with an extra level of security.
As for Jay-Z, it's looking like he might not be involved at all. But here's where Gene Deal, Diddy's former bodyguard, enters the chat. He's been loud about the fact that Clive Davis, not Jay, could be the real player behind Diddy's downfall. Gene's theory, Clive Davis and other industry heavyweights made Diddy into the monster he became.
Gene Deal, let's get right into it. Diddy, he got indicted. You called it, man. A few weeks ago, you was on the platform and you said that he was going to get arrested in September.
Yeah, man. Anybody who in law enforcement or people know the law, when Homeland Security ran up into his house, people will tell you, or people knew that it was just a matter of time that they was going to indict him and bring him in to see the judge, bro. It was just a matter of time. I just figured out with the grand jury and their different sessions and stuff like that, and then what one of the witnesses told me, I just figured it out that it was going to be around September that they were going to bring him in, bro. people might not understand. It's difficult when you see a brother that has so much promise become an icon as far as in the music business and stuff that he did, to turn around and just tear his whole life down. But it's all because of his mentors and the people that trained him and taught him the music business. You know, it's all about the people who trained and taught him the music business, because Puff wasn't, he wasn't born a monster. You know what I'm saying? He was made into a monster, brother. Do you understand what I'm saying? He was made into a monster from the stuff that happened to him, the things that he had to do. You understand? The things that he had to do to become who he is. You know what I'm saying? You know, it's like this, brother. You never like something so much that you can't do without, and you never be willing to do anything to get where you want to be at. You gotta have principles, you gotta have morals, you gotta keep with that stuff. And in that music business, a lot of that stuff get thrown out the window. You understand? And that's what happened to him. He started doing the things to other people that was done to him. To keep it frank, he was doing the things to other people that was done to him. And it is what it is. You gotta know better. And if you know better, you will do better. When he was in New York City, he was like that Gecko from the Geico commercial. Then he turned and started going, when he lived in Cali and Miami, he turned into Godzilla. I would see him talk about how he using drugs. He was never like that. Smoking cigarettes, smoking weed and everything like that. He turned into something that you could consider a monster, bruh. Then he started doing things to people, you understand, that he learned. That's a learned behavior, bruh. Now, I'm not saying that he may have been doing a couple of things here and there with women, stuff like that in New York, but the things that they're talking about that he was doing, bringing in prostitutes to have girl and all that stuff like that, that was some crazy stuff to me, man. So I'm just looking at this whole thing, man, and you had asked me, and we don't have these conversations like most people do. We gonna go back and you gonna tell me what, we gonna talk about this. You said, I'ma ask you how you feel, bruh. I don't want no man to ever go to jail and be leaving their kids behind, be leaving their family behind. You understand? But some dudes belong in jail based on what they do and how they do it. We know that to be true. And it's just this situation, man, when they get down to all the facts and all what happened, he may belong in jail, bruh. And that's not my doing. That's not Cassie doing. That's his doing and his learned behavior from the people that mentored him. You gotta realize, man, he learned from Andre Harrell. He learned from Russell Simmons. He learned from Clyde Davis. You understand? When those people are telling you that they were heavy into the drugs, they was heavy into beating women and doing things at that age, at that crazy stage, that's gonna make him think that he could get away with the same thing that they was getting away with back then. You understand? The things that he was saying, you know, the touchy-feely between two men and all that stuff like that, man. All that, he learned that from them dudes. When I told y'all the story, when me and my man went up to Russell Simmons and he had a house and he had a man in bikini drawers in his bedroom, in his bed. You understand? Bruh, this is that he learned. I'm assuming he learned it from them.
Meanwhile, Diddy has gone totally silent since his arrest, looking more serious than ever. No flashy statements, no last-minute spins, just silence. It's almost like he's in shock, knowing the empire he's built might be crumbling for good.
Joining me now, Brian Claypool, a criminal defense attorney. So, Brian, what Matt was just talking about, these so-called freak-offs, these were no secret. So he'd been openly bragging about these wild parties. You know, there's like and it looks like, you know, there were probably lots of other things going on there too. But he was bragging about this for, what, a couple of decades. Watch.
This is what you need to do. Women, beautiful women. We need alcohols.
Right.
Alcohols.
Right. Not just one alcohol.
Alcohols.
Right, just
Plurals.
different blend. You need the ladies, you need the booze. Right.
Gotta keep them there.
Right.
You need locks on the doors.
Okay, this is sounding kind of dangerous now.
It's a little kinky, but
yeah,
you know.
yeah.
Brian, that was creepy, but what took the Fed so long to do something?
Hey, Laura, always great to be with you. Yeah, I think it's I'm in LA, it's the Hollywood celebrity path to justice, where we simply look at a clip like that and we laugh and giggle about, oh, let's get alcohol, let's get drugs, let's get all these ladies at a party. You know, for years, P. Diddy's gotten a hall pass. He's actually created his own kingdom where he makes his own rules, and you got to follow his rules or you get penalized. And guess what, Laura? He's now in a federal penitentiary, and for the first time in his life, he's facing his own fate at the hands of somebody else. And I will tell you, Laura, I've done federal cases, that's not the place you want to be in federal court. 90% of federal criminal indictments brought down are pled out, right? A plea deal is brought. And of the only 10% left, 90% of those defendants that go to trial, they lose. So he is looking at a daunting uphill battle to fight these horrible charges.
Now, Brian, one of the DHS agents involved in this raid on his Miami mansion described what he saw inside the house, saying that, in my opinion, he's as bad as Epstein. These women are young, either barely legal or barely illegal. Brian, this sounds like he was a monster.
Yeah, Laura, I will tell you that this indictment was very detailed, by the way, too. Your viewers should know there were over 300 subpoenas served, over 50 witnesses interviewed. Why is that important? Because the federal prosecutors aren't going to be leveling an indictment like this unless they have ammunition and they have cause to bring it. And the core issue at this case, which the feds have to prove, which it's looking like they can, is that P. Diddy essentially controlled these women, that he threatened them with stopping the money that he was paying them, that he spiked their drinks with drugs, that's been alleged in the indictment, and that he basically told them, I'm going to ruin your life unless you engage in these freak-offs. And that's really what the prosecutors got to prove. And if you've got some victims coming forward to talk about that, you've got financial records that prove that, travel itinerary that proves that, P. Diddy has very little defense. And I got to tell you, Laura, if this guy wants to fight these charges, he's going to have to step up and walk into a courtroom and talk about it. If he doesn't testify in this case, he is dead on arrival.
Well, who else is on these tapes? I mean, will the tapes ever see the light of day? I mean, that's what everybody's talking about. Who else is there? It's like with the Epstein, his pleasure island. Who else? Who went? Who was there? What's the manifest? But Brian, chances 1 being least likely, 10 being most likely. Will we learn of other celebrities that were at these freak-offs?
Yeah, I think you've got an 8 or a 9 for a likelihood you're going to hear about it. Why? Because there are going to be more indictments coming down, Laura. That's an important point here, because he's being charged with racketeering and conspiracy. You're going to have, well, let's start on the inner circle. You're going to have former bodyguards. You're going to possibly have former musicians that he was with. You've got personal assistants that are going to be, they're already talking about this. Some of those are likely to be charged. And then guess what? If you've got some music moguls that are sending women over to these alleged freak-offs, then you've got some top people that are going to start crumbling too, because they're all part of what's called this criminal enterprise.
So, what do you think? Could Jay-Z really be pulling strings behind the scenes? Let us know in the comments below. And if you like this video, hit that subscribe button so that you never miss out on any new videos. Until then, fam, keep it real.